You have two lives. Everyone can see one. Only you know the other. The person you are at 1 a.m. alone in your room is not the same person you pretend to be at lunch with friends, and the gap between them is slowly eroding your self-respect. If someone could secretly watch your unfiltered life for 24 hours, would you be proud or terrified? Not the edited version, not the highlight reel, the raw feed of your room, your phone, your late night, your silence. Now imagine if there was a hidden camera that recorded the last 7 days and only you were forced to sit and watch every second. No skipping, no excuses, just you and the truth of how you actually live. Stop and think. What would you see? The promises you made in the morning and quietly broke at night. The one more scroll, the one more video, the one more message you knew you shouldn't open, the moments you said you were too tired to do the thing you swore mattered to you, the private arguments in your head, the quiet resentments, the secret cravings that pulled your attention like a leash. Who are you when nobody is asking you to perform? Here's the truth. Your real life does not exist in your posts, in your achievements, in what people think about you. Your real life is being decided in the quiet, invisible decisions no one will ever clap for. The tab you open at 1 a.m., the message you ignore, the snack you reach for when you said you were done, the way you talk to yourself when you fail. These are not small. They are the architecture of your future. You think courage is the big public moment, the speech, the confrontation, the heroic stand. But the truth is, moral courage is built in boring, silent rooms when you could get away with anything and you still choose the harder path. Researchers say around 40% of your actions are automatic habit. That means your unseen environment is training your character while you tell people a story about who you are. So I ask, you now? Who do you say you are? Disciplined, honest, loyal, strong. And who are you at 11:47 p.m. when no one is watching? The difference between those two versions, that invisible gap, that's where your self-respect is either born or slowly bleeds out. Every private yes that betrays your values, every quiet no to what you know you should do, is a tiny self-betrayal, a small fracture in your own trust. I'll tell you why you feel anxiety, shame that you can't quite name. Self-discrepancy theory calls it the pain between who you are and who you know you should be. You feel it most around your hidden behaviors. The search history you clear, the message you delete, the promise you quietly abandon. Your emotion is not random, it is feedback. It is your future self banging on the glass, asking you to stop. Now imagine if you changed only this. What you do when no one will ever find out. No reward, no applause, no post. Just you choosing to act in alignment with your values anyway. What would happen? Your energy would shift, your presence would change, your boundaries would harden from the inside out. And this is not about pretending to be a better person. It's about becoming someone you can finally trust when the door closes. Every secret habit is a vote for who you will be in 5 or 10 years, whether you like it or not. So are you okay with the person your private choices are building right now? Or is it time to take back control of the life no one sees yet? And this is where the invisible battlefield begins. Not on the stage, not in the meeting, in the moments no one will ever post about. Picture this, it's 1 a.m., the room is dark, blue light on your face, you're tired, lonely, your energy is low, and that name pops up on your screen. You know they are bad for you. You know every time you say yes, you lose control of yourself a little more, but your thumb is already hovering over, hey, who are you in that exact second? Stop and think. You're not just sending a message, you're sending a signal to your own nervous system. My impulses are in charge here. Do it once and it feels exciting. Do it 10 times and it becomes your new normal. You train your brain to associate loneliness with self-betrayal, desire with abandoning your own boundary, silence with panic you must escape. That is how identity gets quietly rewired in the dark. Now imagine this. You're at your desk, report open, one number standing between you and looking good. No one is watching, no one will check. You can adjust it just a little and the problem disappears. Your hand moves the cursor. That micro moment is not about the number, it's about the mask. Do you protect your image or your integrity? You don't lose your character in one huge scandal. You lose it in 100 tiny private yeses you never talk about. Here's the truth. Every just this once weakens the muscle that says no when it matters. Each compromise lowers the volume of your own conscience. The next lie feels easier, the next secret feels lighter, until one day you look in the mirror and you don't fully respect the person staring back, but you can't point to a single dramatic event. The point lies in those invisible half seconds where you chose comfort over courage. Think about the last time you did something in secret you would never proudly announce. Maybe it was joining that private chat where people tore someone apart and you added a laughing reaction instead of a boundary. Maybe it was staying silent while a friend was being destroyed in another window. What was the emotional aftertaste? A little hit of belonging, followed by shame, guilt, that quiet self-disgust you tried to scroll away. That residue doesn't vanish, it settles into how you walk into every room afterwards. But the truth is, someone is reacting, even if nobody ever finds out. Your future self. 5 years from now, you will either stand on a spine that was built in these hidden choices, or you will limp on a character that eroded one secret click at a time. Self-discrepancy research shows that the gap between who you are and who you know you should be becomes anxiety, depression, that constant inner friction you can't explain. You feel fake, not because people see you as fake, but because you see you as fake. So I ask you now, what would your life look like if the most courageous thing about you was what you did when nobody was there to clap? If your private reactions, your late-night decisions, your unseen silence were your proudest achievements? Because the battlefield is already active tonight, in your notifications, in your browser, in your thoughts. The real question is not whether you're fighting, it's which side of you is quietly winning. And in the next part, we're going to expose exactly how that silent war is being rigged against you long before you even notice you're under attack. Your life is not being decided in the loud moments. It's being decided in the quiet ones you never post, never mention, never admit. And here's the truth. The difference between the person you are and the person you pretend to be is measured in what you do when no one is watching. Say it again, slower. The difference between your real self and your performance self is not in your words, your mask, your image. It is measured in your private actions, in the click you hide, in the message you delete, in the promise you keep when there is zero reward. So I ask you now, if someone could watch the unedited version of your last 24 hours, would you feel proud or exposed? The point lies here. This is not about perfection. It's about direction. You will fail. You will fall. You will break your own boundary and feel that heavy emotion of guilt pressing on your chest. But the truth is, courage is not the absence of failure. It is the pattern of what you do next. Do you repair, realign, recommit? Or do you pretend it didn't happen and slide a little further away from yourself each time? Researchers call it self-discrepancy, the gap between who you are and who you know you should be. The bigger that gap gets, the more anxiety, shame, and depression grow in the dark. You don't lose integrity in one dramatic collapse. You lose it in 100 tiny private yeses that betray your values. Now imagine if instead each hidden yes or no became a quiet vote for the person you want to become. Every unseen decision is a ballot. When you choose the easy lie over the hard truth, you vote for a fragmented self. When you respect your own boundary in silence, you vote for a brave one. One choice feels small, but repeated, it becomes a habit loop. Your environment cues you, your craving for comfort or relief rises, your routine kicks in, and your reward is either a spike of pleasure or a deep, slow-building self-respect. Stop and think. Who really has control in those moments? The algorithm, the people pulling your emotions, or you, sitting alone with your phone, deciding which self you will feed tonight. When you act with integrity without witnesses, you stop living as a performer and start living as the author of your life. That is power. Not the power to impress, the power to face yourself without flinching. Unseen courage is the highest form of power because no one can take it, cancel it, or unfollow it. It is stored in your nervous system, in your posture, in the way your presence enters a room. People feel it, even if they never see the practice behind it. And in the next section, we're going to expose how self-betrayal quietly hijacks that power, how it drains your energy in secret, and how you can interrupt that loop before it erases your self-respect from the inside out. Self-betrayal doesn't start with a dramatic collapse, it starts with a loop. A quiet, invisible loop that runs when you feel something you don't want to feel. Psychologists call it the habit loop: cue, craving, routine, reward. But the truth is, you live this every day. You feel lonely at night. That's the cue. You crave relief, distraction, a hit of connection. That's the craving. You open the app you swore you'd delete, send the message you said you were done sending, watch what you promised you would quit. That's the routine. For a moment, the emotion calms down. That's the reward. Now imagine if this loop is not neutral, but moral. Every time the cue appears, boredom, stress, fear of being rejected, you choose the same private routine. You lie in a message to avoid conflict. You hide a purchase so no one questions your control. You watch something you know corrodes your energy and your respect for people. Outwardly, silence. Inwardly, a very clear signal. My comfort matters more than my values. Here's the truth. Your brain listens. It doesn't care about your speeches, it cares about your repetitions. Do it once, it's an exception. Do it 10 times, it's a pattern. Do it 100 times, it's your identity. The point lies in what you practice when nobody is checking, because that's when the habit loop fuses with who you believe you are. Research from habit science, like Wendy Wood's work, suggests around 40% of what you do each day is automatic, almost half. That means nearly half of your life is not a conscious decision, it's a script. So stop and think. If your environment is filled with easy escapes, instant reactions, and zero boundaries, what is that script training you to become? This is not about willpower, it's about architecture. Your surroundings are quietly writing your character while you're on autopilot. And there is a cost. Every time your private routine contradicts your stated values, the gap between your ideal self and your actual self widens. Self-discrepancy theory shows that gap predicts shame, anxiety, even depression. You feel like a fraud, not because people know, but because you know. Your presence changes, your energy gets heavier. You start wearing a mask in your own life. So I ask you now as a pattern, interrupt. Where in your life do you quietly tolerate what you would never publicly endorse? Not in theory. One area, one behavior, name it in your mind. Feel the reaction in your body when you say it, because in the next section we're going to take that exact place and show you how to flip the loop, how to turn those same cues into a different routine, a different reward, and eventually a different identity. You just named that one area, that one behavior. Now stop and think, why is it so hard to be brave there when no one is watching, when no one will clap, when no one will ever know you chose differently? Here's the truth. The real enemy there is not fear of other people. It's self-betrayal. Self-betrayal is simple. You know what you should do, you feel the tension in your body, and you still choose against yourself, especially when you could get away with it in total silence. You say you'll go to bed at 11 and it's 2 in the morning and you're still scrolling. You promise yourself you'll stop checking your ex's profile and you're back there again, rehearsing old pain. You tell yourself, today I work, and then you donate your energy to an endless feed instead of the project that could change your life. No one would know, but you do. It shows up in conversations too. Someone disrespects you in private, makes a cutting joke, crosses a boundary. Your whole presence tightens, your chest burns. You want to say, that's not okay. Instead, you smile and say, it's fine. You feel the reaction, you swallow it, and you abandon yourself to keep the peace. This is not about being polite, it's about disappearing. And each time you do this, something deeper happens. Every broken private promise erodes self-trust. At first, you still believe your own words. Tomorrow I'll change. Next week I'll start. But the truth is, after enough repetitions, there's a quiet voice in you that rolls its eyes. You say, I'll stop. And your own nervous system answers, we've heard this before. I'll tell you why this is so brutal. Your brain is always collecting evidence about who you are. Habit research shows that a huge part of your day runs on automatic. So when, in those automatic moments, you repeatedly choose against your values, your mind concludes, I am the person who doesn't follow through. I am the person who hides. That becomes the mask you wear even when you try to act confident. Psychology calls this self-discrepancy, the gap between who you are and who you believe you should be. When that gap widens around hidden behaviors, it predicts anxiety, shame, even depression. You feel heavy for no clear reason. You feel unworthy around people who don't know any of your secrets. You feel watched, even in an empty room, because your own awareness has turned against you. So I ask you now, how much of your low energy, your confusion, your lack of control is just the weight of promises you broke when no one was there to stop you? How many times have you abandoned yourself in silence, then wondered why your confidence quietly collapsed? The point lies here. You're not just disappointing other people when you live like this. You're abandoning the one person you can't escape, yourself. And in the next section, we're going to confront what happens when that abandoned self finally stops cooperating with your lies. That abandoned self doesn't scream at you first. It whispers. It shows up as a feeling when you look in the mirror and have to glance away. Have you felt that? That quiet flinch when your own presence becomes uncomfortable? Here's the truth. Every act of private self-betrayal leaves an emotional bill, and that bill is paid in guilt and shame. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am wrong. Addy, the beginning? After you avoid the hard conversation or lie to yourself about your effort, you still feel guilt. You tell yourself, I shouldn't have done that, I know better. There is still a boundary inside you, but when you repeat it, when you keep choosing comfort over courage in secret, the emotion mutates. It stops being, I messed up, and becomes, this is just who I am. That is shame. That is identity-level poison. So stop and think, how many of your current beliefs about who you are just old, repeated acts of private cowardice solidified into a mask? After a moment of private cowardice, the pattern is predictable. First, relief. You dodge the discomfort. You don't send the message. You don't do the workout. You don't tell the truth. Your body relaxes for a second. Then slowly, a heavy sticky feeling creeps in. You avoid eye contact with yourself in the bathroom. You scroll longer. You turn up the noise. You use more distraction because silence now feels dangerous. Why? Because in the silence, your own presence is waiting. Now imagine if every time you quietly chose comfort over courage, a tiny piece of your self-respect was torn off and handed to that moment. One late-night lie to yourself, one broken promise, one more time pretending you don't care. It feels small. But the truth is, over months and years, those pieces add up. One day you wake up feeling hollow and you call it depression, laziness, low energy. But the point lies here. You're not empty by accident. You've been spending yourself in secret. Self-determination theory in psychology is clear. When you act in alignment with your own values, your long-term well-being rises, even if there is a short-term cost. When you don't align, when your actions betray your inner boundary, your well-being collapses, even if you feel temporarily safe. So I ask you now, whose approval are you really chasing when no one is watching? The crowds, or the version of you that has to live with your reactions when the room is dark and silent? I'll tell you why this hurts so much. Self-discrepancy research shows that the gap between who you are and who you believe you should be predicts shame, anxiety, even depression. Every private compromise widens that gap. You become emotionally unavailable to yourself. You lose control over your own presence. You start to believe you don't deserve better because you have evidence, your own behavior. So I ask you one question that should sting. If a hidden camera replayed your last 7 days only to you, what moment would you be most ashamed of, and what would the courageous version of you have done instead? Don't run from that image. In the next section, we're going to take that moment and turn it into a training ground, so your private life stops draining you and starts rebuilding your backbone in silence. That moment you just pictured, the one you'd be ashamed to watch on replay, this is where you need to stop and think, because here's the truth. This is not about never having that moment again. It's not about becoming some cold, stainless steel version of yourself who never slips, never feels temptation, never touches chaos. When you chase that fantasy of perfection, you don't become holy, you become fake. You learn to polish your image, not your integrity. You hide, you deny, you build a mask, you tell yourself, I'm better now, while your private life quietly disagrees. And then what happens? You start lying to yourself so well that even your shame goes quiet. That is when you are in real danger. So I ask you now, what if the point was not to never fall, but to stop abandoning yourself every time you do? The point lies here. This is not about moral perfectionism. It's about ending the quiet war against yourself. It's about reducing the number of moments where you know the truth, you feel the tension, and you still walk away from your own values when no one is watching. Think about your last secret compromise. You knew you were crossing your own boundary. You felt that tiny internal flinch, that drop in energy, that sense that you were giving away control. And yet you went ahead. That is self-betrayal in its purest form. Not what people see, but what you know. You lose trust in your own presence long before anyone else does. Now imagine if, in that exact moment, you chose yourself instead. You close the tab, you put the bottle back, you send the difficult message, no applause, no audience, just you, in silence, voting for your future self over your current craving. That is private courage. Every time you do it, you tell your nervous system, I am someone I can rely on. Psychologists have found something powerful here. After a failure, people who take small, value-based actions, what researchers call moral cleansing, are more likely to recover integrity and keep growing. You mess up, then you clean up, not with self-hatred, but with micro-repair. You apologize. You delete the contact that keeps dragging you back. You go for a walk instead of staying in the shame spiral. Tiny, concrete, value-aligned moves that stitch your character back together. I'll tell you why this matters. Around 40% of your day runs on habit. If your reflex after failure is self-abandonment, that becomes your identity. If your reflex becomes micro-repair, courage becomes your identity. You stop being available to your worst impulses and start being available to your deeper values. But the truth is, this goes even deeper than habits or willpower. This is about becoming a whole, undivided person instead of a performer living two lives. Jung called this individuation the process of integrating the parts of you that you usually exile into the dark. In the next section, we're going to walk straight into that shadow, and you'll see why your secret battles are not a distraction from your growth. They are the doorway to it. Your secret life is not a side story. It is the main plot. Your life is being decided in the moments nobody will ever hear about. And Jung understood this long before social media, long before image management was a phrase. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Stop and think. Where is your life being directed when you are alone, with a screen at 2 a.m., with food you said you wouldn't eat, with messages you shouldn't answer, with the tab you promise you'll close after one more click? You blame willpower, but the truth is, this is your unconscious in action. Jung called a big piece of that unconscious the shadow. In simple terms, the shadow is the part of you you don't want to see, the impulses you judge, the fears you hide, the desires that feel too raw, too needy, too aggressive. They don't usually show up when you are polished and available and performing for people. They come out in silence and when there is no audience, when your mask drops and your presence is no longer curated. Now imagine if every secret behavior you hate was not proof that you are disgusting, but proof that your shadow is trying to talk to you. You overeat, you watch what you said you'd stop watching, you stalk your ex's profile, you explode in private and then pretend to be calm in public. You wake up and say, "I'm weak, I'm broken, what is wrong with me?" I'll tell you why that reaction keeps you stuck. Because self-disgust is still a way to avoid responsibility. If you are trash, you don't have to change, you just have to hate yourself. Here's the truth. Your secret habits are signals, not verdicts. They are messages from unintegrated parts of you. The lonely part that never got comfort, the angry part that was never allowed to speak, the ambitious part that was shamed for wanting more. When you numb, scroll, binge, or lie in the dark, those parts hijack your energy because you refused to give them a conscious place in your life. This is where individuation comes in. Individuation is not a fancy word for self-improvement. This is not about better habits, it's about becoming one whole person instead of living as two. The public self that performs and the private self that leaks out at night. The point lies in this split. As long as your courage only exists in front of people, you will never trust yourself. Invisible courage is when you stay aligned with your values, when no one will praise you, no one will punish you, and no one is checking. So I ask you now, when you are alone, who are you actually loyal to? Your values or your cravings? Your future self or your oldest wound? Research shows around 40% of your actions are automatic habits. That means almost half of your identity is being built in those quiet, automatic moments you barely notice. Your secret habits are not random. They are messages from the parts of you you've refused to deal with. The question is, will you keep hiding from them or will you finally turn and face them? In the next section, we'll go directly into that confrontation and break down, step by step, how to turn those private moments into training for real, unshakable integrity. So now we step in front of a different mirror, not the one that shows your face, the one that shows your second life, the life no one sees. And I want you to stop and think, if someone could silently follow you for 24 hours, unfiltered, would you be proud of what they saw? Or terrified? Where do you live two different lives? In public, you're disciplined, controlled, on track. In private, what happens when the door closes, when the screen lights up, when the silence comes? Who would be shocked if they saw your browser history, your late-night searches, the accounts you only check when you're stressed? Who would rethink everything if they read your messages, the screenshots you save, the conversations you keep just in case you want control over someone later? Here's the truth. Your double life is not an accident, it is a pattern. You condemn gossip publicly, but who do you text when you want to tear someone apart just to vent? You talk about boundaries, but whose messages do you secretly stalk? Whose online presence do you obsess over, even though you say you're over it? You demand honesty from people, but where do you hide, delete, minimize, pretending your own reactions are innocent? Research on self-discrepancy shows that the gap between who you say you are and who you actually are predicts anxiety, shame, even depression. You feel heavy not only because life is hard, but because you carry that gap every single day. You go to bed with it, you wake up with it, you smile through it. But the truth is, it's draining your energy like a leak you refuse to seal. So I ask you now, where do you demand courage from others while quietly excusing your own cowardice? You tell friends to leave toxic relationships, but who are you still texting at 1 a.m. just to check in? You post about discipline, but what does your private routine look like when no one is watching your screen, your plate, your spending? How many times have you promised yourself, this is the last time, only to repeat the exact same ritual a few days later? You call it stress, you call it, I'll be better next week. You call it, everyone does this. But your nervous system knows you're lying. Every time you betray yourself, you train your brain to believe your word has no value. That is how integrity erodes, not in one dramatic collapse, but in 100 quiet yeses to what you swore you were done with. Now imagine if you did something different. Not perfect, different. Name one area, out loud or in writing, one habit, one message thread, one secret tab, one private routine where you are not who you pretend to be. The point lies here. Secrecy survives in vagueness. Courage begins with precise language. When you name it, you pin the mask to the wall. You can't unsee it. And I'll tell you why this moment matters. Your future self is already reacting to what you do in secret today, not in theory, in your confidence, in your posture, in whether you can look yourself in the eye. What if the reason you feel so tired, so heavy, isn't because life is too hard, but because you're carrying the weight of a life you don't actually respect? In the next part, we're going to test that directly. What happens when you stop feeding the second life and watch what collapses and what finally stands? So now we test it, because there is a hidden exhaustion most people never name. You think you're tired from work, from people, from responsibilities. But what if the real drain is the second life you're running in the background? Stop and think about how much energy it takes to be two different people. You edit your words, you edit your reactions. You remember what you said to this person, what you hid from that person, which mask you wore in which room. You're never fully at rest because a part of your mind is always on surveillance duty, scanning for anything that might expose you. Here's the truth. Every secret contradiction has a cost. When you act against your values in private, it's like opening a tiny leak in your energy tank. One leak feels harmless, 2 leaks feel manageable. But now imagine if you have 10, 20, 30 of these running 24/7. A little lie here, a hidden habit there, a boundary you violate for yourself when no one is watching. You wake up exhausted and you tell yourself it's just life. It's not just life, it's leakage. Researchers call this self-discrepancy, the gap between who you are and who you believe you should be. That gap doesn't stay abstract. It turns into chronic frustration, low-grade anxiety, that constant tension in your chest you can't quite explain. You sit down to relax, and you can't. Your body is on the couch, but your nervous system is standing guard at the door of your own secrets. And then there's the quiet punishment. You start to feel like you don't deserve good things. You sabotage opportunities, you downplay compliments, you push away healthy people because you know what you're really like when no one is watching. Success feels fake. Love feels dangerous. Rest feels illegal. This is not about morality, it's about energy. You can't receive fully when you secretly believe you're a fraud. Notice what this does to your public courage. When you don't respect yourself privately, you hesitate publicly. You want to speak up, but a voice whispers, "Who are you to say that?" You want to set a boundary, but you remember the boundaries you break with yourself at 2 a.m. You want to take a risk, but your own presence doesn't feel solid, so any spotlight feels like a threat, not an opportunity. So I ask, now how much of your burnout is really about your schedule? And how much is about your secrets? How much of your anxiety is caused not by what people are doing to you, but by what you're doing when they're not there? This is the pattern interrupt. What if your burnout isn't just from what you're doing, but from what you're hiding? I'll tell you why this question matters. Because once you see that, the solution changes. You don't just need more sleep, more vacations, more silence from the world. You need fewer leaks. In the next part, we're going to walk straight into them, one private act at a time, and see how your energy changes when your life finally matches your own respect. Those leaks don't start in public. They start in the dark, in the quiet, in the moments no one will ever post about. Your life is being decided there, not on a stage, not in a speech, in the small private choices where you either betray yourself or you don't. Stop and think, where did you learn that courage is something loud? Movies, social media, even the stories people brag about, they all glorify the big scene, the protest photo, the viral call-out, the dramatic confrontation with an audience. You've been trained to believe that if no one sees your courage, it doesn't count. If there's no applause, no likes, no witnesses, your action has no value. But here's the truth you were never taught. The loudest courage is often the cheapest. The quiet courage, the kind no one claps for, that's the one that actually changes you. Doesn't give you followers, gives you a spine, doesn't inflate your mask, it rewires your identity from the inside out. I'll tell you why. There are two different games being played in you. One is social courage. You risk embarrassment, you risk rejection, but you also get an audience. People see you, praise you, attack you, react to you. Your energy is still orbiting their eyes, their opinions, their reaction. The other is moral courage, doing what's right when no one is available to validate you, when no one will ever know, when the only person you answer to is the one in the mirror. Now imagine if someone could secretly watch your unfiltered life for 24 hours, not your feed, your reality, what you click when you're alone, what you say about people in private, the food, the drink, the messages you answer at 2 a.m., the promises you break to yourself because it doesn't matter. Would you be proud or terrified? This is where the point lies. You don't lose integrity in one big fall. You lose it in 100 tiny private yeses. One more lie on the report, one more video you said you'd stop watching, one more night you cross your own boundary and tell yourself you'll fix it tomorrow. Each act seems small, but your nervous system is watching. Your future self is already reacting to what you did in secret today. Chase only visible courage, and you become hollow. You can give the powerful speech, then go home and drown in the same addiction you condemn. You can defend a friend in public, then betray your own values in private. You need an audience to feel strong, so you keep performing, louder, bigger, more dramatic. But the truth is, this is not about courage, it's about control. You're trying to control how people see you instead of who you actually are. So I ask you now, if you can't say no to yourself in secret, what is your public courage really worth? If you crumble in the dark, your bravery in the light will always be fragile, performative, easily shattered by the first real test. Private courage is the foundation. When your unseen actions align with your values, your presence changes, your silence gains weight, your boundaries stop shaking. In the next part, we're going to strip it down even further. One habit, one hidden moment, one decision where no one is watching, and where your real strength finally starts to grow. So let's zoom into that one hidden moment for a second, because it's not random, it's not mysterious, it's painfully predictable. Same time, same place, same emotion, late at night, alone, tired, stressed, scrolling. Your body already knows what comes next before you consciously choose it. This is how your brain saves energy. It builds a well-worn path. Cue, craving, ritual, reward. Over and over until your reaction stops feeling like a decision and starts feeling like gravity. You tell yourself, I don't know what happened, I just ended up there again. But the truth is, your nervous system has been rehearsing that scene for months, maybe years. Stop and think, how many of your weak moments happen in exactly the same conditions, same chair, same light from the screen, same silence in the room, same emotion under the surface. You think you're failing in the moment, but the point lies in everything that was set up hours before the urge even appeared. Now imagine if we called those routines what they really are: emotional emergency drills. Certain apps, certain websites, certain people in your contacts list become your private emergency button. The second you feel anxiety, shame, boredom, you reach for them, tap, click, text. And just like that, the discomfort drops, your brain gives you a hit of relief and the loop gets stronger. I'll tell you why this is so dangerous. That emergency button doesn't just numb pain, it trains dependence. You teach your mind, I cannot sit with my own emotion. I need this escape to survive. So every time you press it, you're quietly voting against your own courage, against your own capacity to hold tension in silence without running. But you don't only react to the trap, you help build it. You leave those tabs open, you keep that number unblocked. You leave the bottle visible, the phone on the pillow, the charger by the bed, so the screen is always available. You arrange your space so that relapse is the path of least resistance, and then you act surprised when you slide back into it. Here's the truth. In these patterns, you are both the manipulator and the manipulated. You negotiate with yourself all day. I'll be good later, so I can indulge tonight. You create the conditions, you script the scene, then you walk into it pretending it just happened to you. You put on the mask of helplessness to avoid seeing your own power misused. So I ask you now, if your environment is quietly training you to be weak in private, what would it look like to design an environment that forces you to be courageous instead? What happens when the emergency button disappears? When the easy path is blocked? When the only option available in that late-night silence is to face yourself? Keep watching, because in the next part we're going to do something uncomfortable. We're going to take that private scene you know too well and rewrite it from the ground up. So now we rewrite that scene by changing something most people never question: the room itself. Not your willpower, not your morality, the room. Because as long as you keep walking into the same environment with the same cues at the same time, your private courage is fighting a battle it will usually lose. Here's the truth. Research on habits shows that around 40% of what you do every day is automatic, not chosen. not deeply reflected on, automatic. That means your unseen life is being run by whatever happens to be closest to your hand, your eyes, your phone. If you don't architect that, it will architect you. And it rarely builds you into someone you respect. So stop and think. When you fail in private, is it because you're evil or because the wrong option is always one tap away? You don't decide to scroll until 3 a.m. The phone is already on the pillow. You don't decide to break your boundary. The person you can't say no to is pinned at the top of your messages. The point lies here. You are not just fighting temptation, you are fighting design. Now imagine if the room was loyal to your courage instead of your weakness. The app that drains your energy is gone, not hidden in a folder. The sites that hijack your emotion are blocked at the router, not left there just in case. Your phone charges in another room, so when that late-night silence arrives, your only available companions are your thoughts, your journal, your actual fatigue. The path of least resistance becomes rest, not self-betrayal. I'll tell you why this matters so much. Every cue is a silent suggestion about who you are. Bed plus phone equals I am always available. Desk plus distraction equals my attention has no value. But a cleared nightstand, a chair turned toward a notebook, an automatic reminder that says, who do you want to be proud of you tomorrow? That's a different identity being rehearsed without a word. Stop trying to be a hero in a room that's built for your weakness. Change the room. So this is not about being stronger, it's about being smarter. You think integrity is this big, dramatic decision, but the truth is, it's usually a sequence of micro frictions and micro supports. One more click, blocked. One more delay between impulse and reaction. One more reminder that points you back to your values instead of just your tasks. So I ask you now, what is the single easiest environmental tweak you could make today that would make your next private, courageous choice 20% easier? Move the phone, delete one app, unfollow 3 people who constantly provoke emotional chaos. Put your journal on the pillow instead of the screen. Because your environment is already training you, the only question is, will you let it keep rehearsing your self-betrayal, or will you quietly rig the game in favor of your future self? In the next part, we'll take this even deeper and talk about how to rebuild your inner dialogue so it stops sabotaging the new room you're creating. Your life is being decided in the moments nobody will ever hear about. Not in the big speeches, not in the dramatic breakdowns, but in the tiny negotiations you make with yourself in silence. When the room is dark and your phone is glowing, you say, I'll never do this again. How many times have you said that? After the binge, after the late night scrolling, after texting someone you know is poison to your energy. It feels powerful in the moment, emotional, absolute. But the truth is, those big vows collapse the second real pressure shows up. I'll tell you why. I'll never is vague. It has no time, no structure, no boundary. It doesn't tell you what to do at 10:37 p.m. when you're exhausted and lonely and your old habit is 2 taps away. It's all intensity, no plan. So your nervous system hears the emotion, gets flooded, and then when the craving appears, it does what it has always done. Automatic reaction. Old loop. Old. Same mask. Now imagine if you stopped making these dramatic, public promises and started making microscopic, private ones. Not, I'll never binge again, but for the next 7 days I won't eat after 10 p.m. Not, I will become disciplined, but tomorrow morning, before I touch my phone, I will spend 5 minutes on one uncomfortable but aligned action. Tiny, specific, time-bound. Only you know about it. No applause, no audience, just you and your word. Here's the truth. This is how you train yourself to finally believe you. Research on habits shows that around 40% of your day is automatic. That means your environment and your routines are quietly building or breaking your integrity. When you fail, and you will, the point lies in what you do next. Do you sink into shame and disappear, or do you practice what psychologists call moral cleansing, one small, value-based act that says, I fell, but I am still this person? You watch something you regret. Instead of spiraling for 3 days, you take a cold shower, you journal for 10 minutes about what you were really craving, you go to sleep earlier. That act doesn't erase the behavior, but it stops the identity freefall. It tells your nervous system we still have control, we still have a boundary, we still move. Every kept micro promise is a brick in the wall of your self-respect. 1 brick feels like nothing, 10 still feel fragile, but after 50, 100, your internal dialogue changes. You stop begging yourself to change and you start expecting yourself to follow through because the evidence is there, quiet, boring, undeniable. So I ask you now, what is one small, private promise you could make and actually keep for the next 7 days that would make you respect yourself more? Not impressive, not dramatic, real. Name it, decide it, write it down. In the next section, we'll take that promise and show you how to protect it when your emotions start screaming for the old life back. You wrote it down, that quiet promise. Now comes the part no one will clap for, no post, no celebration, just you, your decision, and the long, uncomfortable silence of actually living it. This is where most people quit, not because it's too hard in public, but because in private, it feels pointless. You wake up, keep the boundary, resist the old habit, and nothing happens. No one says, wow. There are no likes, no messages, no medal. Only more effort, sometimes more pain. So your mind whispers, why am I doing this if no one even sees it? Stop and think. Who trained you to believe that something only has value when it's visible? That your courage needs an audience to be real? You've been conditioned to chase reaction, to measure your worth in external applause. But the truth is, the most important battles of your life will have 0 witnesses. Your future is being decided in the boring, unposted hours where you either keep that promise or quietly abandon yourself again. Here's the truth. There is a reward in those invisible choices, but it's not loud, it's not fireworks, it's the feeling of being able to look yourself in the mirror without flinching. It's going to bed knowing, I didn't betray me today. No one else hears that sentence, but your nervous system does, your emotions do. That inner voice that usually attacks you suddenly has less ammunition. Now imagine if you repeated that for a week, a month, a year. Research on self-discrepancy shows that when the gap between who you are and who you know you should be shrinks, shame and anxiety drop. You don't have to perform confidence. You start to feel it in your bones, not because people clap, but because your presence with yourself is clean. So I ask you now, which future are you actually building? One path is obvious. You keep chasing visible approval. You stay available to everyone's expectations. You break private boundaries to avoid public discomfort. On the outside, you look successful, generous, on it. On the inside, you rot. You know the mask is winning. You know your control over your own life is slipping. The other path is quieter. You act from your values even when it costs you. Self-determination theory calls this autonomy, choosing in alignment with what matters to you, not what gets you the fastest praise. It doesn't always feel good in the moment. It does something deeper. It builds a solid, wordless respect for yourself that no one can give you and no one can take away. This is not about being dramatic. It's about being aligned. Integrity becomes a habit loop. The cue is that private moment. The craving is for self-respect. The routine is keeping the promise, and the reward is that subtle inner yes you feel when you don't abandon yourself. That is the fuel of private courage. At some point, you have to decide whose opinion matters more, the crowd that doesn't really know you, or the person who has to live with you every second of your life. And the real test of that decision only appears when your emotions revolt and demand the old life back. So in the next part, we're going to walk straight into that confrontation. So now we walk into that confrontation, not with them, with you. Your life is being decided in the moments nobody will ever hear about, and you know it. So I ask you now, if someone could quietly watch your unfiltered life for 24 hours, would you be proud? Or would you start explaining, justifying, hiding? Stop and think. How long will you keep saying tomorrow? How long will you keep living two different lives, the one in public with the mask on, and the one in private where the mask drops and your impulses take control? How long will you keep doing in secret what you'd be ashamed to admit in public, then pretending your anxiety is a mystery? Here's the truth. You don't lose your integrity in one big dramatic fall. You lose it in 100 tiny private yeses. One more click, one more message, one more night you cross your own boundary and tell yourself it's not a big deal. But the truth is, every time you do that, you're teaching your nervous system who is in charge, and it's not your future self. Now imagine if you could see those moments physically. Every secret compromise, every time you stay available to your weakest impulse, another thin string gets tied to you. One string from fear, one from comfort, one from that emotion you refuse to sit with in silence. At first they feel light, then you try to move, you try to change, and suddenly you feel it, you're being pulled. You think you're in control, but you jerk and twitch every time the urge moves. Scroll, react, hide, numb. You say, I don't know why I keep doing this, but I'll tell you why. You've become the puppet, and your unexamined cravings are the puppeteer. So I ask you now, with no drama, just honesty, are you really okay being dragged through your own life by strings you refuse to cut? Research on habits shows that almost half of what you do each day is automatic. That means your secret life is not a side story. It is the script. The point lies here. Moral courage is not the big speech in front of people, it's the quiet moment when you feel the old pull and you do something different while no one is watching. So become a mystery to your old patterns. Imagine the shock of your temptations when one night you simply don't show up. The urge appears right on schedule, and you stay seated, you don't open the app, you don't answer the message, you don't go to that site, you don't play the role. Silence, no reaction, just presence. In that silence, something terrifying and powerful happens. The string goes slack, your emotion loses its script. The old identity doesn't know what to do without your cooperation. This is not about being perfect, it's about being loyal. Loyal to who? That's the real question. At what point do you become more loyal to your future self than to your current weakness? Let that question sit there. Let it judge you a little. Because in the next part, we're going to turn that judgment into a plan. Your future self is already answering that question, not with words, but with emotion, with the quiet pride you feel after courage, or the quiet disgust after self-betrayal. Here's the truth. Every private decision is voting on who walks into your next year, your next relationship, your next room. So what actually changes inside you when you start choosing invisible courage? First, your self-concept. Up to now, your internal narrator might be brutal. I'm weak, I always give in, I can't control myself. But the moment you hold a boundary alone in your room, when no one will applaud, something cracks. You just created evidence against the old story. One act doesn't erase years, but it interrupts the script, and if you repeat it, the script has to change. Stop and think. How long can your brain keep calling you a coward while you keep doing brave things in secret? It can't. The label loses power. Slowly, I'm broken becomes I'm in process. Then I'm in process becomes I'm someone who does hard things even when no one sees. That shift is not motivational wallpaper. It's structural. It changes how much control you believe you have over your own energy, your own reactions, your own life. Second, reduced self-discrepancy. Psychologists talk about the painful gap between your actual self and your ideal self. You know that gap. It's the tension you feel when your values say one thing and your late-night behavior says another. That gap breeds shame, anxiety, even depression. But the truth is, every time your private actions line up with your values, the gap shrinks a little. You don't have to become perfect to feel relief. You just have to become consistent enough that you stop feeling like a walking contradiction. Now imagine if, for 30 days, your hidden life and your stated values were on the same team. No secret browser windows against your conscience. No fake yes when your soul is screaming no. What happens to your anxiety then? What happens to that constant need to perform, to wear a mask, to control how people see you? It drops because you're not terrified of being exposed anymore. There is less to hide. Third, emotional regulation. Before, the secret habit was your emergency button. Bored, click, lonely, scroll, afraid, escape. You trained your nervous system to believe you could not survive raw emotion without a sedative. But when you practice invisible courage, you sit in the wave. You feel the craving rise, peak, and fall. You discover something radical. Emotion is loud, but it is not lethal. I'll tell you why this matters. Habit research shows a huge part of your day runs on autopilot. If your autopilot is, I escape discomfort, your character erodes quietly. If your autopilot becomes, I can feel this and still choose my values, your backbone hardens in silence. You stop being available as a puppet to every impulse, every trigger, every manipulative person who knows how to push your buttons. And then the fourth shift appears. Public courage becomes easier. When you respect yourself privately, you stop walking into rooms feeling like a fraud. You speak up without that inner voice whispering, "Who are you to say this?" Because you know exactly who you are when the lights are off. Your outer presence starts matching your inner reality. Boundaries at work, boundaries in relationships, boundaries with family, they stop feeling like performances and start feeling like extensions of your actual identity. So I ask you now, are you trying to build public confidence on top of private self-contempt? That structure will always shake. The point lies here. Invisible courage is not just about what you stop doing. It's about who you are becoming when no one is watching. That version of you is the one that will walk into every room you ever enter, long before your words, your clothes, or your social mask. This is not about perfection, it's about alignment. Not about being impressive, but being integrated. In the next part, we're going to turn these invisible shifts into concrete practices, so your future self doesn't have to wonder who you really are when the door closes. So now we take everything we've said and bring it to one brutal question. Who are you when the door actually closes? Not the version on your feed, not the role you play at work, but the raw, unedited presence that no one claps for, no one praises, and no one sees. Because that's where you first betrayed yourself, isn't it? In the late-night scroll, you promised you'd stop. In the small lie you told because it was easier than silence. In the boundary you felt in your body but ignored to stay available, to stay liked, to stay safe. You didn't collapse in one dramatic moment. You eroded through 1,000 tiny private reactions. Here's the truth. Your life has always been decided in those invisible seconds. The moment you either keep the micro-promise or break it, the moment you either sit in uncomfortable emotion or anesthetize it, the moment you either take control of your energy or hand it away to whoever is loudest. The point lies in what you do when there is no witness to impress and no audience to reward you. We've walked from self-betrayal and hidden shame through the quiet power of micro-promises into environmental design and sacred isolation. We saw how your room, your phone, your schedule are not neutral. They are training your nervous system. We exposed the mask that smiles in public while collapsing in private. And we named the real victory quiet self-respect. No applause, just that calm, heavy feeling of I didn't abandon myself today. So stop and think. When you look back 10 years from now, will you be grateful for your hidden life or haunted by it? Because research is clear, that gap between who you are and who you know you should be is where anxiety, shame, and depression grow. You feel it after the secret binge, the angry message, the promise you broke to yourself. No one else saw it, but your future did. Now imagine if the habit loop in those same moments changed. Same cue, you feel lonely, tired, triggered. New routine. You pause, breathe, choose silence instead of the automatic reaction. New reward, not a dopamine hit, but a spine. You start to trust your own presence. You become less reactive, more deliberate, less controlled by people who feed on your chaos. So I ask you now, which identity are you building? The person who needs an audience to act brave, who only sets a boundary when there's someone to applaud it? Or the person whose courage is so wired in private that public courage becomes the natural overflow, not a performance? This is not about looking strong, it's about being unshakable when no one is clapping. This is the psychology of courage when no one is watching. The psychology of the unseen decision, the quiet no, the small yes that no one posts about. And in the next part, we're done with theory. I'll tell you why a single, specific, uncomfortable challenge, starting today in your real life, alone, can alter your entire trajectory. So let's make this real. Not tomorrow, not one day, now. But the next 7 days, your life is going to be a laboratory for invisible courage, and your body, your emotion, your silence will give you the results. This is not a lifetime vow. This is a test. 7 days to prove to yourself that change is possible, that your reaction is trainable, that your identity is not fixed. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need applause. You need a clear experiment and the discipline to run it. Step 1. Choose one arena. Not your whole life. 1. Where do you abandon yourself when no one is watching? Is it the late-night scroll that drains your energy and wrecks your sleep? Is it the private conversation pattern where you say, "It's fine," while resentment burns in silence? Is it the work shortcut where you cut corners because no one checks? Stop and think. Which arena secretly owns you? Here's the truth. Habit research shows almost half of what you do is automatic. That means your environment is quietly training your character. So the point lies in choosing one specific battlefield, not declaring war on everything. If you try to fix your entire life at once, you will fail loudly and learn nothing. If you choose one precise place where your mask slips in private, you can measure change. Step 2. Define one micro-promise. One clear, realistic, measurable commitment for 7 days. No phone in bed after 10 p.m. I will not gossip about people who aren't present. I will not lie on my timesheet even once. Notice the structure. Specific, observable, binary. You did it, or you didn't. This is not about being perfect, it's about being undeniable. Step 3. Design the environment. Don't rely on willpower. Move the phone to another room. Block the site that eats your attention. Put your journal on your pillow so you have to touch your values before you touch your sleep. Make breaking the promise harder than keeping it. When you change your environment, You change the default version of you that shows up when your energy is low. Step 4. Every night, 3 minutes. No negotiation. You ask yourself one brutal question. Did I abandon myself today when no one was watching? Or did I stand with myself? Then you scan your body. How does your chest feel, your stomach, your breath? People underestimate this, but the truth is your nervous system keeps the receipts of your integrity. If you slip, you do not collapse, you investigate. What was the cue, the trigger, the emotion? Who was around? What time was it? You treat failure as data, not doom. You adjust the environment, you tighten the boundary, you rewrite the micro-promise if it was unrealistic. This is how real control is built, not through shame, but through design. So I ask you now, if someone watched your next 7 days in secret, would they see a person drifting or a person training? Because in the next part, we're going to raise the stakes and connect this tiny experiment to something far more dangerous than a phone or a timesheet. Far more dangerous than a phone or a timesheet. Because here's the truth. The most important relationship in your entire life is with the version of you that only you will ever fully see, not the persona, not the mask, the one that shows up when no one is watching, when no one is checking your screen time, when no one is applauding your discipline. Stop and think. If there was a hidden camera following you for the last year, capturing every private reaction, every late night scroll, every quiet boundary you didn't hold, what would you feel watching it back? Pride, shame, numbness? Research on self-discrepancy shows that the gap between who you are and who you believe you should be predicts anxiety and depression. That gap is written in those invisible moments. Now imagine if we pressed play on that same replay, but this time you don't flinch, you don't rush to look away from the most private scenes. You watch yourself alone in your room, in your car, in the kitchen at midnight, and you feel something different, steady, calm, respect. Not perfection, but pattern. You see a person who fails, then cleans it up, who wants to escape, but chooses silence, breath, and a small act of control instead. I'll tell you why that image matters. Habit research shows that almost half of what you do each day is automatic. That means your environment is training your character when you're not even thinking. The point lies here. You are not just building habits, you are building a person. Every "no one will know" is training your nervous system to either abandon you or to stand with you. So I ask you now, when it's hardest and quietest, who are you choosing to be? Someone who is available for everyone else's emotion, but disappears on themselves the second the door closes? Or someone who, in that silence, becomes more present, more in control, more aligned with their own value? Pattern interrupt. This is not about being perfect, it's about being honest. This is not about never slipping, it's about refusing to live as your own bystander. Moral courage is not the big public speech, it is the tiny private decision to stop repeating the same self-betrayal and to feel the discomfort without running. Here's your final experiment. Pause this video right after this line. Write down your 7-day invisible courage plan. One small act each day that no one will see, no one will praise, and no one will post. Send it to one person you trust. If accountability gives you energy, or keep it completely secret if that makes it sacred, but choose. Because your life is being decided in the moments nobody will ever hear about. Make sure that when no one is watching, you are still someone you can respect.